Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 125. Kevin Palmieri, from career uncertainty to holistic podcasting and coaching success. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable from the trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by Kevin Palmieri. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you, my friend, for having me. I'm excited. You and I had a pre-call a little while ago. We get along very nicely, so I'm excited to see what we bring to the surface today with our conversation.
Yes, it's going to be fun. So Kevin is the CFO of Next Level University. He's the founder. He is the co-host of a very successful podcast. Lots and lots of listeners. And maybe after this discussion today, it'll be one of your favorite podcasts going forward, because you're going to go check it out.
I appreciate
But anyway, that's the goal.
Of course. Well,
the goal.
The goal is to add value, right? If I can add value and somebody says, this is an interesting dude, then I've done my job. That's value first, always.
Well, absolutely. So you add value, but hopefully they go, hey, I want to go find more value.
100%.
And check this guy out.
100%.
Anyway, so what we do on The Builders is we always start with the story, especially your first time on. And, learn a little bit about you, your background, your inspirations for getting into what you're doing today, how you got there, what made you the great person you are today, and, kind of your origin story. So if you want to pick it up from there and dive in.
Yeah. So I always start as just a simple awareness. I was raised in a single-parent household. So I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. So obviously that plays a part in the man you see in front of you. I'm sure in negative ways, or maybe weakness ways as much as positive strength ways. Other than that, though, Matt, it's interesting because I guess that's not quote-unquote normal, but other than that, I had a pretty normal childhood. I played sports. I'd ride my bike outside with my friends. I'd play in the woods. I'd paintball. I do all that stuff. The interesting things for me started to happen in high school, because when I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I didn't want to go to college. I was always certain of that, right? Nobody in my family had really gone, so I didn't have the external pressure to do that. I didn't want to go into debt to figure out, I don't really know what I want to do with my life. I'm going to go join the workforce. So when I was in high school, I got a job as a gas station attendant. And I ended up working there after everybody else graduated. After I graduated, I just kept working there. And all my friends were away at college, and I just remember thinking, this kind of sucks. Everybody else is kind of living the dream, or at least it seems, and here I am, the townie gas station guy. So I ended up doing that for a couple of years. I job hopped. I was a personal trainer. I was somebody who worked at a hospital cleaning bathrooms and floors. I was a truck driver, forklift operator, many, many, many different things, just trying to figure out, what am I building towards, right? Who do I want to become in the future? Eventually, I got a very unique job opportunity in a market called weatherization. So it was my job and my company's job to go into large buildings and make them more energy efficient, usually state or government-owned buildings. So I went from making $15 an hour to making anywhere from $60 to $120 an hour, because that's what the contracts were required. So nice. I remember getting that, and I was like, this is it. All that other stuff, this is all what it was about. So if you looked at me when I was in my mid-20s, you would see somebody who was making a lot of money. When I was 25, my girlfriend was a model. I had just won a bodybuilding show, sports car, all the quote-unquote measures of success. But truthfully, I was not very happy. I was not very fulfilled. I was anxious. I was depressed. I was unsure of my future. And my girlfriend ended up leaving me when I was 25. And she said, you're a shell of yourself. You're not super supportive. You're not the man that I thought you were at the beginning of this relationship. And that was brutal. That was a very, very hard piece of feedback to hear. when you kind of pride yourself on being a good human, right? It's not that I wasn't a positive person, but it's very hard to pour from an empty cup. So she leaves, and then I convinced myself that I just need to make a boatload of money. I know I have these problems, but the more money, like, we'll just figure that out later. Let's just make money. So the next year, I grinded my face off, and I spent 10 months on the road living in hotels because a lot of our work was in other states, right? So I ended up getting to the end of the year. I opened my final pay stub. I made $100,000 at 26, no college degree, but all of the feelings that I expected to feel were not there. I didn't feel any more fulfilled. I didn't feel any more certain about my future. I definitely wasn't any more confident. And I realized that for most of my life, and especially that year, Matt, I had been living unconsciously. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. That was the beginning. I started to fall in love with podcasting as I am also understanding this job ain't it. I've made it to the top. I'm not willing to travel for another year on the road to make $100,000. This isn't it. So I start calling out. I start leaving the job site early. I'm showing up late. I am not a good employee. You shouldn't hire me at this stage of my career. But I am learning about podcasting, and I'm having great conversations with great people. The problem is I didn't have the level of belief to actually think I could make something of this. So I just kept going to work, and my mental health was getting worse. My emotional health was getting worse. My physical health was getting worse. And eventually it all came to a head. I was 6 hours away from home, staying in a hotel in New Jersey. And my alarm clock went off at 5:15. I sat up, slid to the edge of the bed, lacing up my work boots. I'd done this 1,000 times before. But that morning, it was like there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one is on a different station. And one is saying you're stuck here forever. Not only do people like you not get opportunities like this, they don't leave them. That would be reckless. I don't have a plan B here. There is no plan B. If you do work up the courage to leave, what are your friends going to say? Your friends all look up to you because you make a lot of money. There's a lot of significance there. There's a lot of identity there. If you do leave, what's your family going to think? Right? Your family's super proud of you. You make more money than anybody in your family. And if you do leave this, what are you going to do? Because there is no plan B. And in that moment, Matt, I felt that if I took my life, I would take my problems with me. Now, I'm very blessed because I may not have had a ton of opportunities. I may not have had a ton of role models growing up, but I always had a couple core people close to me. So I reached out to one of them, who is now, he's the CEO and my business partner. And I said, Alan, I'm having a rough day, man. I'm having these thoughts. I'm having these feelings. Like, I don't know what's going on. Am I broken? I don't know what to do. And Alan is somebody who has studied self-improvement since he was young. And he said, Kev, over the last couple years, your awareness has changed a ton. You're working on yourself, you're studying, you're learning, but your environments have remained the same. I think it's time for you to change your environment. And I was like, wow, that's something right there. That's a cool little saying you got there. I don't know what any of that means yet, right?
Yeah.
But I ended up leaving that job 3 or 4 months later. And when I left, I partnered up with him. And him and I said, all right, we're going to do this podcasting thing. We're going to do this speaking thing. We're going to do this coaching thing. And that was in 2018. And him and I have not missed an episode together in, 1,350 or something. You know, we've been podcasting together. Yeah, for the last 6 years now.
Wow. Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, well, listen to your story, finding your way. It's a very common story, people that start out in life or whatever, and they're trying all this stuff and they can't figure out what they want to do. I was similar at that age. I kind of knew I was actually trying to be an artist when I was in my early 20s. I was painting canvases. But at the same time, I was trying to figure out how to make money. So I was trying all these different things, and I didn't want to go to school either for no reason. But then to find you found yourself in that lowest of low points. You can't go much lower than that. Wanted to take your life, or your life is worthless. Luckily, you had somebody to reach out to pull you out of that.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about that part of the story. You're saying that you were already working on yourself, or you're learning, you're getting into self-help. Is that something you were already doing for a few years? You just, like you said, you're still in that environment, but you're slowly kind of training your brain to think in a little bit different way, kind of rewiring yourself in those years?
Yeah. When I started the podcast, that's when I started self-improvement, because it was one of the reasons I started the show. There was a couple reasons that came together in a really unique time. I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he was talking a lot about just like, if you don't like your job, why do you go to your job? I mean, obviously, I know you have to pay the bills, but imagine doing that forever. And I just remember hearing that one time, and I was like, whoa, interesting. That's different. Like, I've never been able to see it from that perspective the way I can today. So that happened. My future business partner had me on his YouTube channel, and we did an interview, and I said, imagine if you could do that for a living. It was this really unique collection of things that happened. And then I said, well, I'm having deep conversations with people. I need to get better at understanding myself and understanding emotions and all of that stuff. So yeah, I started my self-improvement journey in 2017. So at this point, when I hit quote unquote rock bottom, I had been studying myself for probably a year. And I hadn't done a lot of the hard work, a lot of the looking in the proverbial mirror, getting a lot of feedback. I hadn't done that yet, but I had started to understand the basic self-improvement fundamentals, I would say.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of people out there who are going to make fun of self-improvement, picking up self-improvement books and working on yourself and all that. Like, why do you have to change? Just deal with it. But I, again, I was relating to myself, when I, kind of my pivotal moment was picking up Think and Grow Rich when this was the early 90s, that long ago. And reading that cover to cover. I read it probably a dozen times after that, and lots of other books and tapes back then. But it was something where it just opened my mind, and I started to realize I could be more and take myself out of my own dark times. And so that's really powerful. And so you're, what was the spark? Like, what was the first thing you picked up that did you pick up a book, or were you having conversations with your friend, and that's kind of sparked the journey? Or, what was the first thing that kind of, like my picking up, going into the bookstore and seeing this golden book on the bookshelf called Think and Grow Rich? That was my spark. What was yours? The
first book I ever read with the intention of reading it to improve myself was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first one I had ever read. I was watching like TED Talks at that time. I was listening to a little bit of audiobooks, not a ton, but honestly, really, I was listening to a lot of Joe Rogan. And at that time, 2017, 2016, it was a lot of just deep philosophical talks with his friends. And I just remember, I just remember having that moment of, am I really going to go to a job I hate every day for the next 50 years? Like, is that, and I think he said something in one of his episodes. I think he said something like, imagine if an alien came down, an alien lands on this planet and they walk into your house and they see you getting ready for work and you're running around, you're spilling your coffee and you're kissing your kids goodbye. You leave a house you can't afford, you get in a car you can't afford to drive to a place that you hate, but offers you all these opportunities that you think you need. And that's just the cycle you live. And then if you're lucky, you get 2 days a week where you get to do what you want to do. But the rest of the time, you're living for somebody else. That just resonated with me at one point where I think my awareness was ready to handle that. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm going to do this forever if I don't make a change. That was really, really, really pivotal for me at the time.
Yeah, I've heard him say that. I might listen to him once in a while.
Yeah, it blew my mind because it was like, all the other times I'd ever heard something it was very pie in the sky. I was like, yeah, that would be nice. It must be nice. It must be nice. I wish. At this time, it was like, interesting. It landed for some reason.
So a lot of people, obviously, I don't know what the percentage is, because a lot of people are stuck in those situations where they are in jobs they hate, and they just, like you said, maybe they have those 2 days a week to do what they actually want to do with it. They're like working for somebody else at something they don't like all week long, who knows if they're getting good sleep or what else is going on in their lives is crappy. And they don't find that spark though. And they just sit there in that for years and decades go by until they're worn down and die someday, you know. And, but you know, if you, like, I know it's like, it's some kind of formula out there or some kind of, I mean, you have to want it. You have to want to change, and that spark has to happen. You know, I suppose if somebody's listening to this podcast or any podcast, I mean, they're already probably a little bit on that journey, like this type of podcast where they're looking for inspiration or they have a business and things like that, that they are looking to self-improve. But yeah, it's sad though. There's a lot of people out there that are stuck. So, and the other thing that really sticks out in your story is the environment too, and making that leap. That takes a lot of courage. I've talked to other people about that, where they've had to make these big changes in their lives, either, you know, changing, you know, because it's a monetary thing, or they have responsibilities, or they have a lot of things keeping them in place. But to find that inner courage that was something you had to work through as well. Yeah, to do that.
I think, honestly, looking back, I think it was more recklessness than courage, honestly. And here's why. Every other job that I had, so when I worked at the gas station, that was my first real job ever. I told my boss, which I shouldn't have done in retrospect, I said, hey, just an FYI, I'm looking to become a personal trainer, so I'm studying to be a personal trainer. Just want to give you a heads up so you can look for somebody else. They fired me the next day. So I lost my job, and then it was like, okay, I don't have that much money saved up. I got to find a job. And then I ended up working at the hospital, third shift, cleaning floors and bathrooms. Not necessarily what I wanted to do, but I had to do it because I had to make money. Then I ended up becoming a personal trainer. Then I quit my job as a personal trainer because they were not happy with my sales, so I had to pay $1,000 to break my contract. But I didn't have another job lined up. So I literally quit my job. I paid them $1,000, and then I was like, well, time for me to find something else. Then I worked as a forklift operator and a truck driver, quit that job because I didn't like it, and I got laughed at. Like, the people there literally laughed at me. I joined the fire academy. I graduated as an on-call firefighter, and during that time, I was working with a contractor, like just fixing up a house. Like, that was cool. That ended. So I kind of, at that point, had a history of saying, I don't think this is serving me. I'm going to go try something else, and hopefully I'll figure it out. That was definitely a part for me. So it wasn't as risky as it might be for somebody who hadn't done that 5 times before. And to your point, Matt, circumstantially, I'm single. I don't have any kids. My car's paid off. I'm living with one of my friends for $500 a month. So I tried to set myself up circumstantially where it wouldn't break me to be a little bit reckless.
Yeah. And that, again, it comes down to life situation. Yeah. When I was in my 20s, you know, I didn't have, like you said, you don't have as many responsibilities, and I did a lot of the same stuff. I remember one specific story. I really wanted, like, one of my friends' parents or whatever had a cabin up north here in Wisconsin. And all my friends were going. And it was something we did, like, every year. Was like this tradition to go up there and have fun. And I was working at a restaurant here in Milwaukee, and they wouldn't let me off. All right. Well, I just didn't show up. I just went with my friends and found a new job. And so at that point in my life, though, I didn't have, you know, any reason to. Yeah. It was a good job. I kind of regret it, you know, years later. What if I would have stayed there? But yeah, it definitely, like, in my point in my life, you know, older, I'm not quite as reckless anymore.
Understandable.
But it's still, that courage, though, still has to be there no matter what stage you're in. And I think, you know, like with my agency, my web design agency, you know, going out 5 years ago and deciding I'm going to just go build an agency instead of working for somebody else for a salary, was a similar situation. And it took some guts to do that. You know, if I may say so myself. Because I have responsibilities, and but yeah, it takes, you got to kind of dig deep to do that. And I think it takes I don't know if it's every personality is equipped to do that, is to take those risks and Some people want to keep those jobs. They feel secure and they don't have the courage to make those leaps. But somebody like you can inspire them. Think hard about it.
Yeah, I think you should think very, very hard about it, because if you're a very certainty-driven human being, this is a really, really, really challenging path. Where when I left, I think I had $10,000 in the bank and I had $35,000 of credit card access. Because I was making good money, people were just giving me credit cards. So it was like, all right, cool. I have a runway a little bit, but it got bad. I mean, that's the interesting thing, right? Like when you gloss over it, it's like rock bottom, quit job, started winning. Awesome. That's a great story. But when I left my job and I started doing this, I mean, I burned through all my savings. Eventually I'm $35,000 in credit card debt. My car breaks. I can't afford to get it fixed. I can't afford to pay rent. My girlfriend's paying rent for me. I can't afford to get food. Like, that happened quicker than I had imagined and lasted longer than I had wished. So if you're a certainty-driven human being, you just have to understand what level of uncertainty is constructive versus what level of uncertainty is destructive. I mean, I was having panic attacks at one point because I was so far outside of comfort. Like, it was... I say this jokingly to my business partner, but there's a grain of seriousness in it. This journey has taken parts of me that I will never get back, ever. Health-wise, mental health-wise, it has taken parts of me I will never get back. Now, I'm grateful I did it because I'm the most fulfilled I've ever been, but I don't know. I might have made choices differently if I understood the repercussions of them, most likely.
Yeah, again, parts of your story I can resonate with, putting stuff on credit cards and, when times are tough, or burning through money, and you're like, well, it can't be that hard to make it all back, right? It can't be hard. And then years later, you're still trying to make it all back. But that's part of being an entrepreneur, if you want to succeed in life, you have to find your path and take risks and be willing to take those risks. And we won't solve that for everybody here today, but it is definitely something that needs to be thought hard on, and read some self-help books. Rich, it's interesting you mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I've read that book as well. I had John Mendez on this podcast. He's got his own podcast, pretty popular podcast as well, and it's like his gig. But I think that was one of his books too that really inspired him, which is interesting because you look at. I love talking to people like you and like him and people that have been to the bottom or really struggled or found their way or tried all kinds of things and then found that spark inside a book or inside a podcast, like in your case. The only way you find that though is to look and to pick up those books and seek it out. So I think that's where it all starts, really, right? Just you have to want to seek it out.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about why podcasting. Why do you think you gravitated to podcasting? Was it just you like talking?
No. Not really. No.
You like the mic?
I do now, but I never wanted to be a business owner. I never wanted to be public facing. I wasn't looking to be any of the things I am. But this is interesting. When I worked at the gas station, everything is connected. Everything is connected way more than we think. I used to listen to a morning show called the Hillman Morning Show here in Massachusetts. And I remember thinking, imagine if you could just talk on the radio for like 4 hours a day. That'd be pretty cool. And then I'd go pump gas. And, later in life, when I was a truck driver, I didn't listen to music. I listened to the morning show, the same exact morning show. And I listened to sports talk radio. And I remember thinking, these 4-hour shifts, like there's something to this. They come in for 4 hours. They get to talk about what they love, and then they leave. Interesting. That all meant something. I just didn't know yet. Then in, I think, 2015, a couple years before I even thought about podcasting or maybe even knew about it, I was doing these videos on Facebook. And one of the first videos I ever did was, do you deserve to be happy? And I talked in that video about, I think you deserve what you work for, right? I don't think any of us are entitled to success. I think that's why success is so rare, because it requires such a high level of work. That was, in a way, Matt, my first ever podcast episode. I just didn't know it yet. So, yeah, I remember vividly thinking that being on the radio would be a really cool, mostly easy job, even though it's not as easy as I thought. It all comes full circle, because I don't remember what episode number it was early on, we actually got to interview somebody from that morning show.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Cool.
Alan used to listen to the same morning show I did. Her name's Danielle. And we went to her house. We brought all of her equipment. She invited us in. We got to interview somebody that we looked up to. And I remember crying on the beach after, because I was like, I cannot believe this is my life. And she ended up becoming, she came on the show later. She became a client of ours. It's wild how things connect when you chase the thing that you're super passionate about. So, yeah, I think there was a small part of me that always wanted to talk. I just didn't know it. I looked...
Yeah.
Anything that you look at and you're jealous of or envious of, there might be something in there for you, right? It would, imagine if, or it would be so nice if, or it must be nice if. That might be your soul's way of telling you, like, yeah, you might want to do something like that.
And it's also about just trying it.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I got started. I mean, I'm not that deep. I'm not into the thousands
yet.
Or into the hundreds. But how I started was I first had to figure out that I could show up, and literally I just planned the first 10 episodes would be solo episodes. Just going to do a solo podcast. Just make sure I could show up every week and be consistent. And then I had a friend on as a guest. Like, if I'm going to start this out, I have no idea because I didn't know if I could even talk to somebody, you know, on a podcast format. Like, how would that even work? Can I have a discussion that people care about? And had my friend on. I said, well, the worst thing that can happen is this goes bad and we just never publish it. And he was like, cool, let's have fun. and it went well. That was Dolan White. That was the first. He's been on a couple times since. And then just another friend. I kept asking friends, and then I ran out of friends and started getting referrals, and then, you know, seeking out. But the only way I got into it was just trying it and figuring out, I do kind of enjoy doing this. And I think maybe like you, I sort of secretly wanted to, like I listen to a lot of podcasts and myself and others, you know, and interviewers or whatever out there. I'm like, that is kind of a cool gig, you know, something I could do on the side. Plus, you have to you have to know your topic.
Yeah.
Right. You have some deep knowledge and passion about what the theme of your podcast is. I mean, we're just talking, like, for me, I'm just talking business because I love business. And I know that I can talk to anybody about business. I know it inside and out. Right. How did you gravitate to what is your topic? What is at the heart of your content on your podcast?
Holistic self-improvement. Level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. It came together in an interesting way where when I first started, I just wanted to have deep talks. I didn't know what that meant. I was like, I want to know, what's your biggest fear and why? Okay, let's talk about that. One of the first episodes I ever did, I interviewed he was my really, really, really good friend at the time. And we went to high school together. And when we were in high school, he called me out of the blue one day. He's like, hey, man, I'm having suicidal thoughts. Will you come to the hospital with me? And I was like, yeah, man, I'm there. Like, I don't have a license. We're young here. We don't have licenses. Your mom's going to come scoop me, but I'm in. Like, let's do it. So we did a podcast episode on that day for him, and about how that day started and how it progressed and how it ended with us in the hospital together. And I remember after that episode, I was like, that whatever that is it. Like, that is what I'm supposed to be doing, is that. So the other interesting thing, Alan and I both had success financially, right? Alan was a six-figure earner early in his 20s. He made a lot more money than I did, but he was very unhealthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So there's that holistic part of, I don't want to be wealthy and single. I don't want to be wealthy and out of shape. I want to be able to have everything. I want to level up everything because I don't think I'll be fulfilled without it if I'm not growing and contributing in all the ways. That was part two. And then things evolved even more when Alan and I partnered up. Alan didn't grow up with a father either. His dad passed away when he was 2 in a car accident. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. Then it was the approach of, we want to be very, very healthy, masculine men. Not toxic, not just yelling at people, telling them to get their stuff together. I want to be a vulnerable, well-rounded human being who can impact people through an example, through the way I speak, whatever it may be. That is how it all came together, and it's probably not a coincidence that the vast majority of our audience is female, which you might not expect as a tattooed bodybuilder who loves mixed martial arts and all things combat sports. It's a very unique thing we have going on, but I think it's because we said, what can we bring that is unique, based on our personalities, based on our own experiences.
Yeah. It could be your authentic self.
The goal.
Bring that to the table. And and through that thread as well is the fact that you want to help other people.
Of course.
Right? I mean, that at some point that became a thing. You helped yourself along the way, and then you thought, well, now I can give back and help others through their that might be going through the same stuff or whatever. So I mean, that's, I guess, that's kind of what drives me a little bit too, right? I'm not here, do I have to be doing podcasting? Probably not. But I'm here because I always had conversations with people in business anyway, and all I had to do is hit record, and but also I'm passionate about that, but also I want to give back. I like helping people. I like, stories from the trenches, listening to those and learning from that, from actual experience, is something that was important to me, and it's kind of molded what I do. That's why I like to listen to stories, and I like, what lessons can we pull out of that?
Yeah.
And that's what's fun for me. So that's something cool too. I think that you have to have that. You have to actually want to. It's holistic. You're not just doing podcasting because you want to become a famous podcaster.
No, because I tell people all the time, if I was going to do something for money, it wouldn't have been this. This wouldn't.
Right.
I wouldn't have grinded every day for 5 years to become somewhat successful. That wouldn't have been it. So this is the interesting thing. I think a lot of people, and entrepreneurs too, a lot of people start something from a place of profit, and they try to convince themselves that they're passionate about it. Where for me, I was passionate about this. That's why I started. I didn't even know you could make money, because in 2017, it wasn't the way it is today. It was drastically different. I started something from a place of passion, from a place of purpose, and I wanted to continue doing it so badly that I had to find a way to make it profitable. It's just two different ways of looking at it. A lot of us jump in the pool and we swim down and we grab all the rings we can, and we're getting in the pool so we can get out of the pool as quickly as possible. I jumped in the pool and I was like, oh, I like it here. I need to figure out how to swim. Yeah. And then after I figured out how to swim, it's like, now I need to figure out how to swim a different way, or whatever it may be. That's the only reason we're still here. It's not because of the money. There was no money in the first couple of years. It's because, to your point, I want to help people. I want to help people more than I want to help myself, which can be detrimental at times, but I think that's also helped us get to where we are.
And right. So, and I love that, because I think, starting with your passion and starting with something that you're interested in, and you dive in, you're like, like you said, oh, I like this. This is nice. I like these waters. I want to stay here longer. And finding that thing for yourself, but then the motivation kicks in. Well, I do need to, if I'm going to do really well at this, I want to do more. I want to help more people. Yep. I do need to be successful. I do need to think about strategy and monetization and how I'm going to sustain this. How can I do this full time and grow it into something that can help even more and more and more people? Yep. And so what is, in that 5 years it took you, you've been doing this, did you have a strategy day one, like how you were going to build it? Or did you just, like me, just showing up every week and hoping for the best in the first few years?
Yeah, that was it. That was it for me, Matt. I'm blessed because my business partner is an engineer. So there is nothing, he is all strategy. That's all he thinks about, is like, how does this all connect? I'm the artist. I name the episodes. I come up with the topics. I'm the storyteller. In the very beginning, I wanted to do this on the side. I didn't even know you could do this like we do it today. I had no idea it could ever be what it is today. And I always try to be very honest with that because I don't want somebody to think I had a master plan when I started this. I had no clue that things were going to be the way they are today. No idea. What ended up happening was I went to Alan one day when we were 2 years in, and I said, hey, man, I'm broke. I need to start making money. I'm going to die. Like, this dream is going to die. I can't do this anymore. And he said, well, you should start coaching for free. And I was like, no. Did you hear I need to start making money, the money part. And
free.
Yeah, free. Of course, that's what Alan would say. And he's like, well, Kev, number one, you need to build confidence. Number two, you don't have a brand and you've never coached anybody before. So I started coaching. I coached 5 people for free for 2 months. And then at the end of the 2 months, I said, I can't do this for free anymore. What do you think of $50 a week? And everybody said yes. And I was like, whoa, interesting. So I pretty much went from $0 to whatever it was, maybe $1,000 a month or something like that. And that was the proof of concept in the beginning. And that's how we did it. We've done it drastically different than most people. I will never... Yeah, no, I'm comfortable saying that. I will never take $1 for an ad or a sponsorship. You could offer me $1 million right now. That's not the game we're trying to do. It's not about that. That's not valuable to the audience. That's valuable to me, but it's not valuable to the audience. So that's how we've built it. We built it a little bit different than a lot of people aspire to, I would say.
Interesting, yeah, because there's a lot of different models out there how you monetize it, and getting sponsorships or whatever.
Yeah.
But I really like that approach though, because you're building this audience, you're providing a lot of value, and it's natural that people would want to learn more from you and get coached by you, and to kind of build that framework to do that is really cool. Yeah. I mean, like I look at, and I always like to relate to myself, share, I can relate. But no, looking at why I'm doing the podcast, besides, I did it for content too, like we need something to post on social media, get it out there, get some clips going. But I never thought about the advertising thing or getting sponsored or whatever they do. I did it, to this day, from day one, I always, I just, my sponsor is my own business, my agency.
I love it.
And so I weave it in, like I'll probably mention it here and there or whatever within podcasts, but not anything that's like thought out. It's just within the context and thread of the conversation. But at the end, I mentioned, this is and by the way, our sponsor for today is my agency. And that's it. And it is what it is, because I haven't set out to do anything beyond, but I think it has helped my agency. It has brought us business and exposure or whatever, but it works for us in that context. So it's kind of really interesting. I think this is interesting probably for the audience as well, that you can go into podcasting for different reasons. You can go into something, that you love, that you're passionate about, or that you want to build a business around, but it doesn't have to be all sponsorship deals and whatever, that type of thing, or ads, halfway through, cutting through. By the way, here's an ad for, it doesn't have to be that. It can be just, you can use it as something to leverage it to, do the coaching or do whatever, or build an agency or do whatever you want to do. Yeah. It's very cool. Yeah. It's very flexible.
There's a ton of opportunity. It's just like anything, though. I mean, you understand business at a deep level, right? Think of it this way. With podcasting, a podcast is a business. It's different. The podcast is lead gen, it's marketing, it's value add. There's a lot of things it does. But the path of least resistance is usually never the path to the highest amount of money. So it's almost like what I tell people all the time is if you're focused on getting ads and sponsorships, you're missing the mark, because you could already be making money. If you have 10 people who listen to the podcast and you can offer them one-on-one coaching, that's 10 opportunities to make money. And you're going to make way more money with coaching than you are getting paid 1 cent per listen. It's just...
Yeah.
But... It's
like people on YouTube that do like Patreon and stuff, and they get them to, to monetize it that way or whatever. There's other ways to do it.
There's many
yours.
Many ways to build an actual business out of the podcast.
Yeah.
Not just getting, a couple cents per listen. That's not going to be it's not going to be a sustainable business model, most likely, for most of us.
Yeah, and I think, something like coaching or if you could do like something like Patreon where there's a subscription base to it too, that's something you own. Like I've always been that through the years doing business online. I've always been attracted to subscription-based stuff or retainer-based stuff.
Makes sense.
Things I can rely on and things or building my own list, and not having, if you have advertisers and suddenly there's something you're talking about they don't like or something, they pull out, and where's your money go? And now what?
Yeah. Now you're in trouble.
Yeah. So to diversify, I've seen that over the years. I watch a lot of YouTube too. But you see that with different YouTubers over the years as things have changed in that space where they have moved at various stages. And I remember years back, there was this movement to go off of YouTube and find other ways to monetize and diversify and stuff like that. So they're not completely dependent on that ad model or whatever. Yeah. Diversification is really, really important. So you're doing coaching, and so that is blossomed for you, I assume. You're doing well.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We started with like mindset coaching because that's what I knew. I know mindset. I can talk about mindset. And then as our journey grew and escalated, we started to understand that we could solve the problems that we had that other people were currently having. So the big thing for us is, well, we're going to start a podcast production team. Interesting. Let's see how that goes. Now we have 40 some odd clients that we produce. Awesome. We're going to start a social media team. A lot of our clients don't want to learn social media. All right, cool. We can do that. So the coaching, it went from one-on-one, how do I help you get better at, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, self-improvement, relationships, money, whatever it is, to, oh, interesting. Now people are coming to me for podcast advice. Now people are going to Alan for business advice. Now they're asking us about social media. We just saw a lot of problems that our clients were having, and we said, we've already solved them for ourselves. There's no reason we can't put a system in place. So that's the interesting thing is we don't monetize our podcast, quote unquote. I don't make $1 from the amount of listens we get, but everything is directly from it. Everything is.
Yeah.
If the money wouldn't come without the existence of the podcast, it is directly from the podcast. And that long tail has been very, very important for us to understand. So yeah, the coaching is going great, but group coaching, retreats, live events, that is all stuff that's growing at a very similar clip. Yeah.
Very, very cool. And I love that you are identifying the problems that, again, in any business, mine or others, that's one of the ways you find that success and you can grow as you look for pain points, you look for things that you can solve and others that you did solve yourself.
Yeah.
There's a few things that I do in my business today where I was engaging with different kinds of clients, other agencies. And I said, they're having this problem. I can solve it. That's going to be my thing. I'm going to solve that problem for them.
Yep.
And it became my thing. And here I am. But the same for you. So you're seeing they're starting to come to us and they need some help with social media. They need, producing podcasts. We can solve that problem.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant.
I appreciate it.
That's what entrepreneurs, that's what it's all about.
I asked a client this today. I said, what's your perceived area of expertise? AKA, like, what would somebody actually pay you for? Not in an ideal world, right now. What would they pay you for? Right. And he's like, this. And I said, go do that. That's the first step. You just got to get momentum. You got to go 0 to 1. And then from there, you're going to see other problems that you can solve. But it has to be
0 to 1.
0 to 1, right? That's the hardest one. But after that, you'll start to see people are more likely to pay you for your perceived area of expertise than your desired area of expertise. Those are two drastically different understandings. So I am more likely to get paid a larger sum of money for podcasting than mindset. Just because I have so many public-facing podcasting things, I mean, I don't know, I probably have more coaching calls than I do podcast calls or podcasting, but nobody sees those. So it's just not the same credibility. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. So where do you see yourself going forward? Are you going to continue to expand your what you're doing here, your ecosystem of coaching and all the stuff you're doing and retreats and all that? You're doing retreats already?
Yeah, we have our first one this year. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. The goal, honestly, is, to continue growing the business the way we are. Our long-term vision, like 30, 40, 50-year goal, is to have the most positively impactful self-improvement company on the planet. That's one of the reasons we do. I like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't do 7 episodes a week because I want to necessarily. I do love podcasting, but it's a lot. There's 7 days. And if somebody creates an 8th day, we'll do another episode. We're just mostly based on Alan's understanding. We're reverse engineering what will it take for us to accomplish that goal. And if you want to impact people, one of the best ways to impact more people is to be more consistent and do it more than anybody else. So that is one of our unique strengths, is I will run myself into the ground to show up every single day and add as much value as I can. So yeah, the long-term goal is to make this into a very, very large business from a place of impact more than anything. Because impact creates growth, growth creates monetization, monetization creates more impact long-term.
Nice. And I love, and this is something that's unique to like yourself or maybe myself or others that have found their passion and what they love to do, is you can have that long-term vision. Like you just had 30, 40, 50 years. You're done. This is it. This is what you're doing. You're building this. This is your retirement, and you may not retire. You just keep doing this forever. And that's how I feel about my business. Good. You know, like it took me a lot longer than you to find that, but I found it. And that's the power of that too, is getting yourself in that position. All the stuff you went through, all the struggles, and this job and that job and that job, and making good money, and then hating yourself because you didn't feel like you're worth anything or whatever. All that stuff you go through, and you found your way. You just kept plugging along. Ask for help. Your friend helps you. You try something new. You fall in love with it. Here you are. I mean, it's a beautiful arc, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's going to be an inspiring episode.
I hope so. I hope so. The last thing I would say is think of the way this interview went. Most of it was about the struggle, not the success. So if you're going through something right now, you're writing probably a really, really impactful story. I know it probably sucks in the moment. I know it does.
Right.
But the stuff, the struggles, the suffering, a lot of that is the nostalgia you get to look back on later.
I will tell you something. I had a friend tell me, time flies, probably like 10 years ago now. And I've had my share of ups and downs through business over the decades, good times, bad times. I have a lot of wish I would have, why didn't I? And that's why I was talking to him. I was talking to him, and he's a very, very successful person. He's runs a multi-million-dollar internet business, and to this day, and we might do some work for him too. But he, I was talking to him at the time. I said, I wish I would have been doing what I'm doing now, which was getting into web development and design because I loved it. I wish I was doing that like 20 years. Why didn't I do this 20 years ago? Like get into this stuff. He's like, he stopped me. He said, no. He's like, you are Matt. Like you are a collection of all those experiences, good and bad, all the things you did. Like I was in internet marketing for years. I did a lot of stuff that first decade online. That was, I was doing affiliate marketing, advertising. I was building digital products and memberships and doing all this stuff. And all the failures I had before that in different businesses, all that made me who I am today. And it's now my superpower, right? Now, like I'm unique in my space because I have that experience, and it informs how I help people and so on, and how I show up every day. And same for you. All those things that we went through, all those struggles, help you coach others through those struggles. And It's all it's a beautiful thing.
It's all connected, my friend.
So no regrets. You know, like you said, if you're going through stuff now, just know that that's just fodder for later, so you can help others. So awesome! It was great talking to you, Kevin. If people want to find you, I know we have something called the Next Level University. They can find. That's a website or something? What is that?
So Next Level University is the name of the podcast and really the entire business. The website is nextleveluniverse.com, and that has the podcast and a bunch of other stuff if you want to check it out. There's a lot there. You'll realize very quickly, oh, okay, yeah. It's definitely more than just a podcast at this point.
Nice. And if they want to like seek you out on social media, you hang out on LinkedIn. Where's your favorite?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Watering hole?
I don't post as much anymore just because our audience isn't there, and I just try to go to where the audience is. It makes more sense. But yeah, LinkedIn, just search Kevin Palmieri. Instagram is probably the best place. My handle is @NeverQuitKid.
Nice. All right. Well, I will see you around, Kevin.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for joining us. Really, really inspiring. Thanks, Builders Crew. Till next time, we're out of here. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you are interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.